Greetings, peace be with you. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the exact step-by-step process on how to stop overthinking. Okay, this is something that I've dealt with for a long time. This is something that I continue to deal with, but it's the exact practices that I'm going to share with you in this video. There are 5 to be exact. Okay, these 5 exact practices are what have allowed me to overcome this constant rumination of thinking about the future, right? Getting anxious and stressed out about the future, and then getting depressed or getting regret or disillusionment about the past. These 5 practices is what helps me deal with them more effectively so that I can overcome the overthinking and that I can actually begin making progress towards creating the life that I love. Rather than getting caught up in the overthinking, I go and take the actions that need to be taken. Okay, so the first thing, really important to understand, is that you do not overthink, you do not get depressed, you do not get anxious because you are you. Okay, there's nothing specifically wrong with you. It's because you are human. This is something I dealt with for a long time because I would judge myself, I would shame myself, I would overthink, then I would judge myself for overthinking, and then I would overthink about judging myself about overthinking, and that was a vicious cycle that is very difficult to break out of. Okay, and understand that we have something in our brains, in our psychology, in our generational trauma that's leading on for millennia, which has led to the creation of the negativity bias, which means that our selective focus is way more likely to look out for the negative things in our environment and in our experience rather than the positive. Okay, there's someone who, I'm not sure who it was, he said that our brains are like Teflon for the positive, meaning they are, they retract the positive, they don't really focus on the positive, and they are Velcro for the negative, meaning that they get attached to the negative. Okay, so understand this is a common phenomenon of the human mind to focus on the negative, and the key is not to judge yourself, it's to understand that it is happening because it's part of the natural propensity of the brain, okay, and of thought in itself to keep us aware of the negative. Okay, now the second step over here is so important, and it's something that I've emphasized on this channel before as well so many times, and that is to have a regular transcendent practice. Okay, now transcendent practice can be also thought of as meditation, as silence, as mindfulness, whatever you want to label it. Having a scheduled period of time in your day where you are not allowing any stimulation to come in. Okay, because we have so much stimulation coming into our minds. Some estimates say that we have more stimulation in a day than our ancestors had in a year, right? The fact that like more than 50,000 advertising messages are being sent to us every single day, and that was an estimate from like 2000 and I think like 8 or something like that. So it's way more than that. And the more stimulation we have, the more we have stuff that we're thinking about, the more we get caught up in overthinking, and the less we can focus on what actually matters. And when we develop a transcendent practice where we sit in silence and cut off all stimulation, that is when we practice the reality that we are not our thoughts. Okay, there's a common myth about meditation and mindfulness and transcendence that it's about not having any thoughts. Okay, that's completely a myth, because as Emily Fletcher, who is the creator of the Ziva technique, says that the mind thinks involuntarily like the heart beats involuntarily, right? Try to make your heartbeat stop, it's impossible, right? So in the same way, when we try to clear our thoughts, right? I have to meditate, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to clear my thoughts, and then we can't do it, and then we overthink about not doing it, and then we get caught up in that cycle even deeper, right? What I suggest to you is to allow those thoughts to come up and observe them. And what this helps us do is get an objective awareness of those thoughts, right? This bird is overthinking right now. Get an objective awareness of those thoughts so that we can practice the reality that we are not our thoughts. Okay, I can tell you, yeah, you're not your thoughts. Intellectually, you can understand, yeah, I'm not my thoughts. The fact that I can observe my thoughts means that I'm something outside of those thoughts. But when we are caught up in that overthinking cycle, which I've been caught up in so many times, it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame, right? So when we practice the silence of cutting off stimulation, it's like we're getting outside of the frame, and we can watch those thoughts go by like clouds in the sky, right? You are not the clouds, you are the sky that is ever present, that is observing the thoughts go by And the more that you do this, right, meditation is not something that we do to get good at meditation, right? Meditation is not about getting good at meditation. Meditation is about getting good at life, about putting ourselves in between stimulus and response so that we can choose the way that we express ourselves rather than react based on conditioning. And meditation, silence, transcendent practice, cutting off stimulation is the key to strengthening our mastery over our ability to place ourselves in that gap between stimulus and response, so that even if something comes up in our mind, even if we're overthinking, we can get perspective on it, we can observe it, we can not get attached to it, so that we can choose the way we want to express ourselves rather than get stuck in that cycle. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you right now. So that's essential. That's probably the most important step. And if there's one thing that you do after watching this video, make sure to develop a regular meditation / transcendent practice whereby you're not letting any stimulation come in. Okay, now the third step over here, which really transformed everything for me, is Stoicism. Okay, now I was thinking about how I should place this, but Stoicism is such a vast topic. There's Epictetus, there's Seneca, there's Marcus Aurelius, there's so many great philosophers that let us know how to deal with life's challenges more effectively. And when it comes to overthinking, I've noticed in my experience, like, the overthinking is a result of trying to do something in the future, right? Or trying to ruminate about the past. Not trying, but actually doing it, right? Ruminating about the past and being anxious about the future. So the fact is that when we get trapped in that cycle is when we forget about what is actually within our control. And the essence of Stoicism really is about the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. Okay, this was an idea that I was introduced to from Stephen Covey, but this is an idea that is at the core of Stoicism as well, which is to concern yourself only with the things that you have influence over, right? And to let go of the things that you might be concerned about, like the economy, like the weather, like someone else. But that's not something that you have control over, right? And when we focus on things that we don't have control over is when we let our thought energy go towards things that we don't have an influence over, right? So the circle of influence is small, which is your own thoughts, which is your behaviors. The circle of concern might be very large, but when we narrow down our focus on that which we have control over, that is when we're focusing on what we can actually make a difference to. Okay, Marcus Aurelius said, learn to be indifferent to that which makes no difference, right? So many of us are focused on things that make no difference, ruminating about, the past, which we can't change, right? We can only reflect on how we can optimize moving forward, or we think about something in the future, like the worst case scenario, but that hasn't happened yet, right? The fact is, if you're in the present moment and you're alive, you have nothing to be worried about, but our thought chatter just makes us go down that path. And when we can practice the essence of Stoicism, which is captured in the Serenity Prayer, right? This is a prayer from Alcoholics Anonymous. It really captures the essence of it, and it's the prayer that God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? So key over here. When we can really practice this prayer, I encourage you to memorize it, right? The serenity to accept the things, the courage to change the things, and the wisdom to know which things I can change and which things I cannot change. Okay, it's a complete game changer. Stoicism is like an operating system for your mind, and it empowers you to choose your response, right? Choose your attitude, to focus on what matters rather than get caught up in the melodrama of the mind. Okay, the mind's just trying to keep you safe. There's no point trying to make the mind the enemy, right? It's just trying to keep you safe. It's doing what it's here to do. Your mind is not designed to make you happy, fulfilled, and joyous. Okay, it's just designed to keep you safe. And when we can learn to control the mind rather than have it control us is when we can overcome overthinking. Okay, now the fourth step over here is that of journaling. Okay, anytime I'm overthinking about something in the future, about having anxiety, I've realized that the anxiety only exists in the anticipation. If I'm anxious about a certain project that I have going, if I'm anxious about a certain event, if I'm anxious about a certain presentation, that is the point where I take out my journal. I'm like, hey, why am I anxious about this? Okay, I'm anxious about this because I feel like I mess up, then I'm going to look like that. If I look like that, then people are going to think of me differently. Okay, what can I do about this? Okay, I can practice more, right? Now I have the action step in front of me. Then I can go ahead and take that action step. And as I'm engaged in that action, in the behavior, I'm not caught up in the overthinking, right? Journaling is really a tool of self-awareness, which allows us to know what we can do right here, right now, in order to get more prepared for that which we may be anxious about. Okay, journaling is so important, just letting that stream of consciousness come through and just letting whatever comes out and navigating the mazes of your mind and getting to the core of why you feel the way that you do. Okay, and the final step over here that I'm going to share with you is so important, it's so critical, that I'm going to get up and get to it right now as well, and that is of the fundamentals. Okay, so many times we get depressed, we get anxious, and we don't focus on the fundamentals, which is really about eating, moving, sleeping. Okay, Matthew Walker, who is a sleep researcher, he said that a good night of sleep is the bridge between hope and despair. I love that quote because I can totally relate to the reality that when I have a good night of sleep is when I wake up feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, energized, and I have a motivation for what I can do right here, right now to create a future that I love. When I'm sleep deprived is when I'm stressed, is when my insulin levels are out of whack, is when my heart rate is out of whack, when my heart rate variability hasn't recovered, my nervous system hasn't recovered, and therefore that state of the body affects the mind as well. Okay, so important to make sure your sleep is on point, making sure that you're in alignment with the circadian rhythms, right? Because when I was the most depressed was the times when I was staying up all night and I was awake. I was staying up all night and sleeping all day, and that didn't help my hormones, it didn't help me, it didn't help anyone at the end of the day. Okay, and then eating as well, right? A large portion of your serotonin is produced in your gut, and when we're eating foods like refined sugars, refined grains, that ends up causing inflammation. Okay, and if you can eat fermented foods, that has been scientifically proven to reduce excitability as well. Okay, and then when it comes to movement, right, I have so many videos on this channel as well, but Tal Ben-Shahar, who is a researcher out of Harvard who studies human happiness, he says that not moving, not exercising is like taking a depressant. Okay, think about that. If you're depressed, if you're anxious and you're not moving, then you're only making the situation worse. Okay, because when we move, when we get around, we release those feel-good hormones that allow us to function more optimally as well. Okay, so those are the 5 steps that I've implemented that have given me that awareness on how to stop overthinking. And it's not about making it stop at the end of the day. I hope you get that, right? It's not about ending the anxiety. It's not about conquering that. It's about how to manage with those feelings when they do come up more effectively, because they are bound to come up, and it's about how we respond to them that really makes the difference. Okay, so with that, I'll conclude today's video and let you know that the Monk Mode Challenge is now live for October session, so you can click the link below and register for that if you want to create true transformation in your life by joining a like-minded community, a high vibe tribe that will hold you to a higher standard and really get you to complete the daily missions that will give you that clarity, that will help you conquer that procrastination, overcome that information overload, and take action every single day towards creating a life that you love. Okay, so I will leave you in the peace and power of the one infinite creator. Leave a comment below letting me know the one thing that you're going to implement after watching this video, so that it doesn't become another session of information that you don't do anything about. Okay, leave a comment below letting me know the one thing you're going to do after watching this video. Click the like button if you like it, subscribe if you have not already, and with that, I will see you in the next one. Much love to you. Take care.